Hello everyone, my name is Linda K. Peters. My Indian name is Lyn Kaysaywaysemat. I was born in Northern Ontario, Red Lake, Ontario. I now reside in Hope, British Columbia, and I'm a member of the Seabird Island First Nations. I came here to share with you some stories on murdered and missing Indigenous women. I've been involved in this movement for the past close to 10 years. And I do this on behalf of my mom and my niece and all the other women that need a voice. I come from a storytelling perspective, and I share 5 stories that have greatly impacted me emotionally. And I try to tell these stories the best I can. My mom was the main reason that I originally got involved because of what happened to her in the 50s. I was very young at the time. I was about 8 or 9 years old. But I didn't know at the time what had happened. I didn't find out what happened until I became an adult, and my mom told me herself. I just knew that my mom didn't come home for a week, but I didn't know why until I was an adult, and she told me. My mom was abducted on her way home. My parents had went out for the night, and they had gotten separated from each other. And my mom was walking home by herself. A car came along and offered her a ride, and there was 3 or 4 men in there. We believe they were miners because we lived in a mining community, the 5 or 6 functioning mines, and there was always cars driving up and down looking for Indigenous women. It was late when my mom was walking home, and they offered her a ride, and she said no. But they drove her in the car anyway. They drove her to an isolated area where she was beaten and gang raped. She was beaten with a tire iron unconscious, and she was thrown in the bush and left to die. But my mom didn't die. She came to, and she made her way to the road, and she finally got a ride over to my grandparents' place. But she never reported it, because this happened quite often in my community, and nothing ever happened. The police don't do anything about it, so she never reported it. So those men got away with it. So I do this because I want to be her voice. She never had a chance to tell anybody what happened to her. So I feel compelled to tell her story and share it. People need to know. And it's my mother that keeps me motivated to continue to do these presentations. This has been going on for a very long time. This that happened to my mom was in the 50s. In the 70s, there was another young lady about 19 years old. Her name was Helen Betty Osborne. In Northern Ontario or Manitoba, a lot of the communities are up north. They're fly-in communities. So a lot of the young people have to move into town if they want to go to school. And she wanted to go to school, so she moved into the PAW. The same thing happened to her. She was walking home late at night, and again she was picked up by 4 men from the PAW. 4 local men from the PAW. She was drove out somewhere by the lake. It was winter time. And she was assaulted, brutally assaulted, and stabbed to death with a screwdriver. These men, 4 of them, got away with it for a very long time. Everybody in the paw knew who done it. And nothing ever happened for 16 years. Finally, 1 person was charged out of the 4. 1 person went to jail. She was only 19 years old. And then, in 2014, little Tina Fontaine from Winnipeg, Manitoba. She was only 15. She moved into the city to look for her biological mom. She got caught up in the welfare system, child and family services system, I mean. And she met up with the wrong people. And she disappeared. She was found in the Red River in a bag. And the last person that was seen with her was charged and acquitted. A 50-year-old man. So nothing ever happened to him either. I tell these stories many times and they never get easier. In 2018, my niece went missing in Hope, BC here. She lived on the street. That's where she wanted to live. But we always looked out for her. We always checked on her. She was always around. We always seen her. And then we went looking for her one time and we couldn't find her. In July 16th, she went missing in 2018. Our family searched for her. We did 3 highway searches, 2 river searches. We got volunteers to help us. We tried to get the local search and rescue to help us, and they turned me down 3 times. I was told it was because they were governed by the province, and they could not go unless it was approved by the RCMP or there was some evidence of some sort. So we did this mostly by ourselves. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know what to do if we were to find anything. But we went through all the homeless camps as well, and Hope and Chilliwack Mission, and we couldn't find her. 4 months later, she was found. 4 months later, she was found on the banks of the river down in Delta, close to Vancouver. From Hope. That's like 200 kilometers. She was found in the river. And to this day, we don't know what happened. The RCMP told us they would keep in touch and it was still being investigated. They also said they didn't suspect any foul play. And that I don't understand at all. Even though she lives on the street, she was always very upbeat. Everybody in town knew her. They know her by name. She was kind and she was friendly with people. So I don't believe she jumped in the river. I think something worse happen. I think she may have been picked up and thrown in the river. But we'll never know that. And just recently in 2019, we have April Prejean, who has been missing from Yale. She lived in Yale. She was last seen with her partner. And he's gone now. He's deceased. So nobody knows where she's at. Only he knew where she was at. So she's still missing, and the family are still looking for her. And those are just 5 stories that I talk about. Because this has been going on forever. From when I was 8 years old, when it happened to my mom in the 50s, that was 60 years ago. So it was probably happening way before then, and it's still happening to this day. You know, we have the Highway of Tears here in British Columbia, where a lot of our Indigenous women have gone missing. And then there's the Picton farm just outside of Vancouver, where that farmer was picking up women from the downtown east side in Vancouver and taking them to his pig farm. Most of those women that were found at that pig farm were Indigenous women. So many of our women are going missing, and it feels like nobody's looking for them. It feels like nobody cares. And that's one of the reasons that I tell these stories. I want to be the voice for these women. I want to be the voice for my mom. I want to be the voice for my niece. Our women shouldn't be treated like this. There needs to be justice for our women. I try to create as much awareness as I can. I also design First Nations clothing, and I do a lot of fashion shows. I use my clothing as a way to also create awareness. Most of the fashion shows that I do are for murdered and missing Indigenous women, or to help stop violence against women. I did a line of red dresses. I designed and made a teepee dress that's dedicated to murdered and missing Indigenous women. And it has figures on there of mothers and daughters. It's my way of trying to create as much awareness about this crisis. Oh goodness, I'm sorry. I've told these stories many times, but it never gets easier. Just yesterday I did a presentation in Vancouver for murdered and missing Indigenous women. We had a national inquiry that was done on a national inquiry, a report that was done several years ago with 231 recommendations. I'd like to know what's happening with those recommendations. As far as I know, I don't know if any of them have been implemented. We need to be able to, we need some action. 231 recommendations are a lot of recommendations. But how are they helping our women? Is it helping our women? I don't know. All I can do is continue to try to be a voice for the women out there. My mom survived her ordeal, and I'm so fortunate that she did, because my mom is still here today. My mom is 97 years old. She's still here today. And I tell her story to honor her, because I feel the need to tell her story because I want her to know that people care. Someone cares. I care. So we need to continue to create as much awareness as we can. We need to have justice for the women who have gone missing or were found murdered and nothing happened to them. To the people that assaulted and murdered them, nothing happened to them. So we need to fight harder. And this is my way of helping. Trying to help, trying to bring awareness. Thank you very much for listening to my story.